How do we make decisions about anything? What does the Bible tell us is the process for working through an issue to come up with a biblical answer? Sometimes you hear it phrased like this: I just want to know God's will for my life. You can if you follow the biblical principles for making decisions. There are 5 steps for you to consider. Number 1, have you prayed about this? Asking God for wisdom, not asking God for the answer. Unless God does something radically unprecedented in the church age, He's not going to say, okay, you threw out the fleece, you need to marry Jane, because we used to name women Jane. And you're trying to figure out who you're supposed to marry. God isn't going to tell you who it is. Instead, He's written a book for you to read about, which, by the way, is the second step in the decision-making process. You read everything that the Bible has to say about a spouse. You get wisdom from God through His Word, and you pray to God that He will illuminate it so that you apply it rightly. Step number 1 is to not ask God to send down breadcrumbs so you can decide, so that He can paint a billboard for you, or so that you can tell God, all right, I'm going to walk out of the house, and the first person I meet at the mall who's named Jane, if it doesn't happen within 2 hours or the time I get through the automotive department at Sears, then I know I'm not supposed to marry Jane. That is no way to pray, and it is no way to make a decision. Instead, craftsmen, that's the word I was looking for, craftsman tools. Don't ask God to have Jane show up in the tool section at Sears either. Pray for wisdom. God, I want to be wise. I want to be obedient. I don't want to make a fleshly decision. Would you please grant me wisdom through your word, which is step number 2. And step number 3, through godly counsel. Lord, I am going to humbly ask other people who are smarter than myself, and that is not a difficult task for me. What is their opinion? What is their advice? And how should they render that information? Where do they get that from? Because they're reading the Bible. That's why you don't just want gray-haired wisdom. You want biblical wisdom, gray-haired or otherwise. Do you hear the pattern? You're asking God for wisdom. You're seeking it in His revealed word. You're asking wise people who are informed by His word. And then step number 4, you consider your options and your, get ready for this, preferences. That's right. Who do you like better? What type of woman are you attracted to? What type of house do you prefer living in? What type of car gets you all excited like those commercials where they get all hyped up about driving a car? It's okay to consider that stuff. Which car do you like? How expensive is it? What are my monthly payments? So you consider all of those issues. That's step number 4. And then step number 5, get ready for this. You make a decision. That's right. That's it. You just make a decision. You pull the trigger, and you can know beyond the shadow of a doubt, which, by the way, is one of the products where we talk about this very issue, along with decisions, knowing how to be in God's will for your life. You ultimately make a decision, and that is God's will for your life. That's true. That's just it. It is God's will for your life. Now, I am going to have to make a decision very shortly. I'm going to continue to talk into this camera, or I'm going to continue to talk. Guess what? That was God's will that I did that. How do I know? Because it just happened. And now I know for sure that I was supposed to now be looking in this camera. How do I know that? Because I'm doing it. And nothing is outside of God's purview and His sovereign will. So when you make a decision about a spouse, a house, or a car, once you pull the trigger, that is God's will for your life. If it were not God's will, you wouldn't be doing it, because you're never going to thwart His sovereign will. That is how we make decisions about virtually everything. Now, granted, not everything requires that process. You don't need to, all right, here I am at Denny's. Am I going to have the Rudy Tooty, or am I going to have that spinach omelet? Give me the Rudy Tooty. Lord, what's your will for my breakfast? I need to read my Bible. I'm going to pray about wisdom for my breakfast food. And then I'm going to look down the counter and ask for godly wisdom. What do you guys think I should order? Did you pray about it? You don't do that for every single thing, but when you're making decisions and you want to make sure that you're doing it wisely, you follow those steps.